has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall, coast to coast. It's Ferrall on the bench, coast to coast, in the biggest way possible, hanging out the bad seat, the bad apple with a bad attitude. We are live in New York City, the Big Apple. Ooh. People dressed in plastic bags, directing traffic, some kind of fashion trade-ups, do that, along with the Tater and Tutty King, the master of ceremonies, the founder of the ILC podcast, and of course, the rights holder for the Sheet of Integrity. It's Carver High this afternoon, ladies. Mafia running it with Luke Hamilton on a not-so-terrible Towel Tuesday. Our rundown, a double shot with Morency today from Vancouver. I was watching the president-elect today, Carver High. I'll tell you the story in a second. Mike DeCourcy's with us also this hour. In the second hour, the lid master, James Young, our basketball insider on SportsGrid. So I watched the president-elect have another Mar-a-Lago press conference in which he said that Canada is a state and that they will no longer be a country when we take them over and stop giving them things and stop taking things from them. He said, we spend $200 billion a year on the state protecting them, and that they are not a country, they are a state. And he said, I tried to convince Governor Trudeau, the governor of the state of Canada, that he should listen to me. And instead, Governor Trudeau basically had two choices, kill himself or quit. And he quit. And so your boy is taking over Canada and where is it? Greenland?
Greenland. Is it Green? It's Greenland. Yeah, Greenland. He's taking over Greenland too. I saw it. He's going to take over Panama.
So bottom line, it's a race between Putin and Trump to start taking things over in terms of other countries. He's just picking wherever he wants to, take a. He says he's going to take over Canada, and that Canada is merely a state. It is not a country.
Well, it seems like by trying to get a lot of properties, it's like a game of Monopoly or Risk, as Mafia just said, throughout the board. But remember, Greenland is not green, as you found out in Mighty Ducks 2. Greenland is ice. It's a big block of ice that is up there. There's nothing green about Greenland if they go and get that
clean.
too. So.
Our ice is contaminated.
Yeah, well, that's very
systems.
True. That's very true. So there is a difference in that aspect. Happy Tuesday. Good to see you back. All right, tell me, you froze on Saturday. Give me the whole story. You froze on Saturday night. The Steelers let you down 19-17. Give me the whole I saw the big steak you ate at the Capitol Grill with the young gun. I mean, that was probably the best part of the night. Was that steak before you got to the place the Steelers play.
Somebody said, why would you go to the Steelers game the way they've been playing? I said, because I went to the Capitol Grill first. We ate $1,000 worth of food. I mean, they just kept coming out with more food. And, lobster bisque and bacon and shrimp cocktail. They take a crane to lift the shrimp from the table to the plate. And then I had a tomahawk. I mean, I had it all going. And then the drinks were going. I said, I need to be drunk to go outside. Then we went to a store and bought face masks for $160. We bought like the Jordan face mask, like you're robbing a bank. And it was pressing against my nose and my goatee all night. And when I finally took it off, I had ice chunks on my face and schnabberknuckle frozen coming out of my nose. I stood in line 45 minutes for a cocktail, of which froze. The Coke was frozen. It was like slush. So when the chick poured it came out like slush oil, like at the 7-Eleven, the Slurpees. And it was so cold that I wasn't even miserable. There's not a word for it. There's not a word for how bad it was and how bad they suck. I cannot believe that they were 10-3. I'm looking at a home playoff game this weekend, and I had to cancel everything. the hotel, the Willie Penn. I'm not going. I just told my boss I'm working Monday.
Penguin tickets.
The hangover Monday was Penguin tickets are out. So I am not going back to Pittsburgh. The whole thing was such an atrocity. I mean, I still had fun, but it was miserable fun. Like I was miserable while I was having fun. So, and they suck. I cannot believe they have absolutely not a chance in hell, not a chance in Greenland of winning against the Ravens on Saturday night at 8:00. Saturday night at 8:00 is going to be identical to last Saturday night at 8:00 when they got their ass beat by Joey Silk. And I mean, they are awful. Their offense is worse now under Art Smith than it was Matt Canada. And Russell Wilson's career is over. I mean, he is so slow. Honestly, he's pathetic. His career's over. He's finished. You can have him for free. Take him. No one in Pittsburgh wants him. You should have heard the fans. Oh, my God. They literally want Mike Tomlin dead, let alone gone. They want him dead. You think I'm kidding?
No, I don't think you're kidding. But, yes, they will play Saturday night in Baltimore against the Ravens, round number 3 for the Wildcard playoff weekend. Now, I don't think they're going to win.
One and done.
I don't think they're going to win, but can they keep it close? I mean, that's a big number for the Steelers.
Can I talk bad about them enough this week to get them to cover?
I hope so, because I'm taking them. I think that I saw enough from their defense Saturday night against Cincinnati that I believe that their defense will come to play on Saturday night. I don't believe the offense will.
Did you watch the game? Did you see that ref?
I did.
Did you see how many bad calls
the
they
ref,
made?
The ref had a bad night.
What time it was?
The refs had bad calls.
Night. Like
there was some bad ones.
Stopped the game after every single play for the entire first half.
How many times? It seemed like every time the Steelers had a short yard, like that 3rd and 1, the 4th and 1, they go and review it and they overturn it. Like they never reviewed the Bengal ones that were like, right, they just kept moving the sticks. All right, move the sticks over. They got it. But every time the Steeler one was right on the line, oh, hold on, timeout, expedited review. We got to go look at this. It was very bizarre. Some of the referee nonsense that happened on Saturday night.
They should be fired.
Yes, and you mentioned
was a loser. He was frozen because he didn't know whether he was coming or going.
And I can't believe it because, like you said, Arthur Smith, and then all these teams are lining up to interview Arthur Smith to be a head coach. The Jets,
if you like
Bears,
losing, he's your guy.
Everybody's all lining up to go give Arthur Smith a job. Meanwhile, everyone in Pittsburgh is saying, "Come get him! You want him? Come take him away. You could have Arthur Smith." We'll do all of that today. The coaches who got chopped. We will do all the matchups for this weekend.
Arthur Smith's the worst. He is the worst.
Arthur Smith is the worst.
So you got buddy in Atlanta said that to me on the show, and he texted me during
yes.
Take him. Go ahead. Good luck.
Arthur Smith. Amazing. It really is. So we'll go through all the games. Let me get your thoughts on all the games for this weekend. We will do all of that today on Coast to Coast. We'll go through all the coaching stuff, general manager stuff, everybody getting chopped, and who's lining up to get all these jobs. Pretty much everybody. If you have lived and breathed in an NFL facility before, you're interviewing for one of these jobs. I mean, each team's interviewing like 30 guys for every single opening that they have. It's pretty amazing how the process goes now. And then we'll do all that. I got a lot of NBA tonight for you, a lot of hockey tonight too. So it's going to be a very busy day.
Semis this week.
We have that also. Thursday and Friday night. Line it up. Notre Dame and Penn State. Hard Rock. Miami. Going to be beautiful that night too. No rain. 70 degrees. Great weather down at Hard Rock. I can't wait for Thursday night. It's going to be awesome.
I can't wait either to see the Irish and Penn State. And then Friday night, Texas and Ohio State. I mean, does it get any thicker than this? That one's at Jerry's World. Speaking of Jerry's World, how about Mike McCarthy? It appears the Bears want him.
Appears the Bears want him, or is it a ploy by his agent to get Jerry moving on if he's going to be back in Dallas? Could be a couple different things there.
this was a team that you should have dominated. You've now lost 4 straight. You're heading into the playoffs, and you're searching for answers, not just in terms of your offensive line, but your quarterback now.
I just don't see this team peaking at the right time. It was almost like we were anointing Mike Tomlin as the best coach in the NFL 12 or 13 weeks in. Then once they got to the real competition and the attrition started to settle in, it's just not a good football team.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this, I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text, put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, hey, I never got the text. And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. When he texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You can listen to Sports Rage every night and watch it too along all of our outlets at 10 Eastern. I have no comment
Ready to rock.
on that subject, but we got a double shot with Morency right here every day on C2C. I want to get your thoughts seriously. I have to ask. I already talked about it on the show. I'm listening to this guy Trump today talking about Canada. That he wants to take over Canada. And he doesn't want to take anything else from Canada. No supplies, no cars, no wood, no lumber. They don't need it. We don't need anything from them. They're a state. And he tried to convince Governor Trudeau to go along with his thinking. And, of course, as you know, Trudeau jumped off a building rather than deal with him. What do you think when that guy says that Canada isn't a country?
I try to just sort of tune the rest of the world out, Scott. You got the NFL playoffs, college football playoffs. I'm not going to react to every comment over the next 4 years. You know what I mean? But all I can say is buckle up. But buckle up. And here's a tip. We give a lot of sports investing tips. Invest in gold over the next couple of years, if there's ever a time right now. But yeah, I avoid all these wild things, Scott. I really do. I've come to the conclusion many years ago. What happens in we can only control what we do in our own lives, right? And there's people, there's so many losers, man. They think this stuff is like sports teams, Scott. They're out there with flags and cheering and T-shirts and stuff. It's like, bro, you're a loser. Nobody cares about you, all right?
All right.
And I'll make you feel good.
What do you think of the NFL playoff field? I went to the Steelers, lost to the Bengals. Nice job by Cincinnati to have a winning record after the way they started, but they're not in the playoffs either. The Steelers go in the worst team in the entire playoff field. They went from being 10-3 to sucking monkey onions, and they're going to lose to the Ravens.
Yeah, the Steelers, this is one of those games, Scott. They're really, 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 really trying. They're trying to reel you in, man. They got a big fishing pole. They threw it in the water. And now they're like, man, we got to find some people dumb enough to take the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game. How are we going to do it? Well, let's give them 10 points and see if that's enough to make them do it. And I never said I was smart. So I'm one of the dumb ones. Scott, I didn't like it was a close game, but I thought the Bengals would escape with that win. Pittsburgh's offense seems to be broken. Let's just call it out for what it is, right? Their offense has hit a wall right now. Pickens is another, he's a nut job. He should be out there, going to Iceland and Denmark. And Pickens, this guy is crazy. I always thought he was overrated as well. I mean, you got another problem on your hands here with this dude. I don't understand how it is, Scott. The Steelers, are such a meat and potatoes, smart organization in a way, right? You know what I mean? You look, right. They don't do crazy things. They don't do impulsive things. They're all about character and the brand. Yet for whatever reason, they can't figure out how to draft a wide receiver that isn't a psychopath lately. They just can't. For whatever reason, these wide receivers turn into freaks. And it's I don't know why, how it is. They drafted my boy Roman Wilson out of Michigan, hoping that, all right, he's a Harbaugh guy. He's not insane. He got hurt, right? And he's been zero factor. So with all that being stated, I am tempted by the 10 points, Scott. Man, it's a lot of points in a playoff game. Baltimore, 3-8, 3-9 in the playoffs. I know this feels different this year, but that's a lot of points in a playoff game, man.
Yeah, look, the Steelers can't get out of their own way. How do you think the Bills will do at the Bealo against Denver? They look good.
Originally I'm a Buffalo Bill fan, guy, so obviously at least any smart Bills fan is going to have a realization that every game is scary for the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs. Let's just call it out for what it is. I mean, the lack is they haven't even made it to the Super Bowl, right? Josh Allen hasn't made it to the Super Bowl despite all of his greatness. So I'm not taking anybody for granted. And originally I had more of a, 8.5, 7.5. All right, it's kind of high. Should land around the number. For whatever reason, now that the game sort of gets closer, I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable about it. I think the Bills win by 10, Scott, 13 or something like that. But the back door is going to be swinging wide open from a betting perspective. I mean, if the Bills are winning, let's say the Bills are up 30-17 with 5 minutes left and Denver scores a touchdown, boom, you don't cover. So there's a lot of ways you can sort of get backdoored in that game. Pittsburgh feels different. Doesn't really feel like Pittsburgh, if Pittsburgh's not going to backdoor it, you know what I mean, Scott? Pittsburgh either show up, play a close game, and it's 26-23, and they're going back, and it's a freaking battle, or Pittsburgh are just going to get lit up and murdered. And it's going to be damn, all right, you got to figure things out. They just lost 27-3 or something. The Denver game, I don't think Buffalo are going to show up and win 41-7, but I think Buffalo will sort of be a step ahead. I would rather lay the points than take the points in the Buffalo-Denver game. And I say this, I'm not trying to be a homer or anything, but, Buffalo are playing at a pretty high level right now. It's going to be hard for Denver to keep up offensively.
What about the Chargers at Houston Saturday?
Oh, boy, this is another one. They don't come easy this week. This one, I don't think that the Chargers should be 3-point favorites. Now, it doesn't mean I don't think the Chargers can win a game. But I don't agree with the point spread and the overreaction to this. I think the game should be essentially a pick'em. I mean, the Texans are still playing at home. The problem for the Texans is they just have so many injuries. And to me, the best player on the field is going to be Justin Herbert. And if you guys look at Justin Herbert, he hasn't had the opportunity to play in a lot of big games, right? Just sort of those monster big games. He played in the Rose Bowl. He played really well. Remember, he came back against the Jags, put up 1 million points, right? We've seen him perform when he gets the chance. I think he's the real deal, this guy, Scott. I thought, the media has built him up and put him in the same stratosphere as a lot of other quarterbacks that have had more success than him. But if given the chance, I believe that Justin Herbert can find a way to win this football game for them. So I'm leaning with the Chargers.
When we come back, we'll look at the other games, including Washington, Tampa, Green Bay, and Philly. And then Monday night, Minnesota and the Rams in Lipstick City.
This was a team that you should have dominated. You've now lost 4 straight. You're heading into the playoffs and you're searching for answers, not just in terms of your offensive line, but your quarterback now.
I just don't see this team peaking at the right time. It was almost like we were anointing Mike Tomlin as the best coach in the NFL 12 or 13 weeks in. Then once they got to the real competition and the attrition started to settle in, it's just not a good football team.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this. I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text. Put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, "Hey, I never got the text." And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe. Like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFC selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, Morency, let's go to the Green Bay Philly game at the Link, and Philly's laying 4.5. It's at 4:30 on Fox on Sunday in Philadelphia.
You know, if there's one, this is one of the underdogs that I think can win. Right? Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh can hang around. It'll be close. It wouldn't be the biggest upset in the history of the world, but they're in tough. Baltimore are rolling right now. Buffalo are playing at another level right now. The Philadelphia Eagles are not, Scott. Jalen Hurts hasn't played in weeks. He's actually still in concussion protocol. I know he's going to play, but he hasn't played in a couple of weeks. Even before that, it wasn't like their passing attack was lighting it up, right? So much so that their own players were complaining about it. And then now they had one big game, and they shut everybody up. They threw it to A.J. Brown he got his touchdowns, and he was happy. And it silenced things for a week. It was like, I forget who it was against. It might have been against the Giants. It was against someone bad. It was like, yeah, whatever, dude. Saquon Barkley's the key. Their defense is awesome, and Saquon Barkley's awesome. Other than that, if you're the Packers and you can basically contain Saquon Barkley, make Jalen Hurts beat you. Jalen doesn't like to run anymore. Whether it's injuries or ever since, to me, after he got paid, to be honest, he doesn't really take off. He can. He's effective when he does, but he doesn't like to. He'd rather almost throw the ball away. I'm assuming it's a playoff game. He's going to be more aggressive now, but he hasn't played in a little while, Scott. So if Green Bay can get off to a strong start early and, get in a rhythm, put a touchdown on the board, get up and, we're winning 14-7. You have to chase us. We're not chasing you. Green Bay have a tendency of starting to chase teams. And then, they don't play poorly, but it's like next thing you know, they're losing. They've got to finish drives, Green Bay. I don't like the Watson injury for them, but I'm telling you, Scott, I'm leading with the Packers plus the 4.5. I don't think the Packers get blown out in this game. I respect Matt LaFleur enough that, he's going to come up with a plan, especially there defensively, that they can slow Saquon down and make Jalen Hurts beat them throwing the football. And then it's going to be up to Jordan Love to play a little bit better. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been great. Like I said, the Packers have never really gotten into a rhythm offensively this year, right? It's always been injuries. Somebody always gets hurt. They've never had everybody on the field at the same time. It's one of those weird years for them. Very kind of like Houston in a way. But I still think they're a live dog, Scott. I kind of think Philadelphia are vulnerable and they're going to get knocked off. I don't think the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to take the Packers plus the 4.5.
And then Washington and Tampa is the Sunday night game at Raymond James, and Baker Mayfield and the Bucs are laying 3.
Yeah, this is a fun one. This is going to be an entertaining football game. Just from the storyline, you got Jaden Daniels versus Baker Mayfield. The Bucs are another one where you and I have talked about the Bucs. I like the Bucs. I respect them. I think they're a dangerous team. I think they can play with anybody. But at the same point in time, their defense is not very good. Right? You can move the ball on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Bucs need a lot of things to go right for them. They're going to need to win track meets. They're not going to win these slugfest, low-scoring games against good teams. They're just going to have to try to outscore them, which I think could be a problem for them. You know, can they survive this one? Probably. Right? I mean, I like Jaden Daniels. He's a stud. He is a rookie. It's his first playoff game. So I'm leaning with the Buccaneers to survive here, Scott. But closely. This game has 3-point game written all over it. But I think the Bucs are going to survive, and I do like the over 50.5 in this football game. I don't see how there's not points.
What about Monday night? It's the Vikings and Rams at SoFi, and Minnesota's laying 1.5, 47 is the total.
Hey, I hate being the guy, and I'm not the guy that bets on what I saw last, right? That, you bet what happened last Sunday in the NFL, you'll die this Sunday. That's the way it works. It's a week-to-week league. But with that being stated, like I tried to believe in Sam Darnold, and I had a real hard time. I have a real hard time believing he's going to be able to bet. Like, that was so bad, Scott. I mean, that's like a pitcher, bro, giving up 2 grand slams or something in the first 4 innings of a game, and then you're going to roll them out in a World Series 4 days later. It's like you're hoping for the best here. You know what I mean? With Sam Darnold. And defensively, the Vikings' problem, the Vikings are a great, awesome team, but they blitz the hell out of people. They like to rattle quarterbacks, get in your face, and rattle you. Good luck rattling Matthew Stafford because he's never seen a blitz before, right, Scott? I think the Rams are going to beat him.
Wow, there you have it. Rams over the Vikings on the Monday night wildcard game. All right, Morency, we've hit all of the NFL playoff games today. As the week goes on, we're getting closer to the college football semis. We'll talk about that with you. Have a good show tonight, buddy. Thank you.
Should I go?
This was a team that you should have dominated. You've now lost 4 straight. You're heading into the playoffs, and you're searching for answers, not just in terms of your offensive line, but your quarterback now.
I just don't see this team peaking at the right time. It was almost like we were anointing Mike Tomlin as the best coach in the NFL 12 or 13 weeks in. Then once they got to the real competition and the attrition started to settle in, it's just not a good football team.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this. I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text. Put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, hey, I never got the text. And I'm like,
no.
Oh, yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. When he texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Mike DeCourcy is a legendary scribe of the Sporting News. He's also a big basketball head on Fox Sports and the Big Ten Network. And he's also on Coast to Coast every week. Thank God for that. Mike, good to see you. I was in Pittsburgh for the debacle on Saturday night in the 5-degree weather. And I said to the audience earlier, the only thing good about my night was going to the Capitol Grill for a $1,000 dinner before the game. I thought that the Steelers looked awful, and they have looked awful now for a month straight. And I mean, they are finished. And I can't even describe it. They are done.
Here's where I'll disagree with you. I don't believe that Saturday night's performance was at all connected or similar to the games against the Eagles and the Ravens. They were in the Eagles game until Najee Harris fumbled. If Najee Harris doesn't fumble, the score goes likely to minimum 21-17 and possibly 21-21. I don't remember the exact point, but at some point in the third quarter. In the Ravens game, they were actually on the way to taking a 14-7 lead if only Russell Wilson doesn't decide to try to be a hero and tries to take on a defensive back and winds up fumbling the football basically at the goal line. So instead of a 14-7 lead, they wind up in a hole. So those were performances that were against exceptional competition, and they failed because they are the team that has to rely on you turning the football over and them not. And in those two occasions, they turned it over in significant. There was a pick six as well in that Baltimore game. So that's the fundamental truth about those two games. Kansas City was a mess. Kansas City's way better than the Steelers are on any day, let alone Christmas Day with an hour and a half worth of rest. But then the Cincinnati game was an entity unto itself. It was a complete debacle from the offensive side of the football. The coaching staff seemed to have no interest at all in opening the playbook beyond page one. It felt to me, as I got through this, I'm watching it and I'm trying to figure out, what are they doing? What are they trying to do? And Scott, there came a point in the game where it felt like it was an exhibition game. And they don't want to show anything to week one opponent or week two opponent. That's what it felt like. They had 11 first down plays to take that were not part of the end of the first half 2-minute warning or the attempt to come back from more than 2 scores down in the fourth quarter. 11. And on those plays, they ran the ball 11 times. You can't win like that in the NFL unless you're gaining 15, 20 yards on every one of those. And out of those 11 plays, Scott, 8 of them went for fewer than 5 yards and 7 went for fewer than 4. So they weren't going anywhere. It wasn't like, this is working, let's keep doing it. It was, this is failing every time and let's keep doing it because we're going to control the football. Well, you don't control the football if you don't move it. They make you give it up eventually.
They suck. Okay?
But they is a strong... No, they is much too encompassing because they went against the best offensive unit in football with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and they didn't allow – they allowed 1 touchdown on the opening drive, and then they controlled the game at that end. Where they failed miserably is on the offensive end. Now, if George Pickens is dropping everything that's thrown to him, which he literally did, save for 1 sideline pass on the opening drive, if he's doing that, I can't say they're going to move the football successfully against anybody. But when they play the game the way they can and have, they're a challenge for anybody to beat. And they decided against the Bengals, and maybe it was the weather, but the weather, if it's not working, Scott, you can't keep doing the same thing. There's just no way that's defensible. And Tomlin tried to defend it by saying that, well, it's a lower risk proposition. But again, if you are getting less than 3 yards or less on every first down play, you are not moving the football. And if you're not moving the football, you're not possessing the football. And so in that part of the game against the Bengals, they failed miserably. They were badly outpossessed by the Bengals, who chose, look, we're not running against these guys. We can move the football in the air. And they did. They just couldn't complete drives against the Steelers defense.
So you wrote about the Eagles resting Saquon Barkley. You think it'll pay off on Sunday afternoon?
I do. I think that was the right move. I think he needed to be rested, healthy, and ready to go. And that record to me really didn't mean anything, Scott, because if you're getting an extra game to break it, what does it really matter? And this is football. You were a kid in Pittsburgh in the 70s and early 80s, as was I. And we didn't worry about numbers in terms of football. I mean, we all knew 7-14 and 41-92 and all 41-91 and all those kinds of numbers. But nobody paid attention to football records other than how many Super Bowls and championships you won. Right. So for Saquon to get that record, it really wouldn't have meant anything. He's one of, I believe now, 9 guys. I think there were 8 before him that gained 2,000 yards in a season. That's a number we'll respect forever. It's a very short list. It's not always a distinguished list because one of the guys on it was O.J. Simpson, but it's a very short list of NFL greats that have gotten 2,000 yards in a season, and Saquon's a part of that now.
So those number ones, Kansas City and Detroit, how advantageous is it for them to have the week off?
I believe it's significant because every NFL game is difficult now. The talent is more balanced than ever for the most part, except at the pivotal position of quarterback. And so for Kansas City to have the rest, to get a little bit healthier, Detroit, I don't know how many of the many players they have that are injured will have a chance to get back because they've got that week of rest. But I think any team that wants to win a Super Bowl better be pretty close to healthy. So whatever break they can get to get back more of their guys is significant. They showed a lot in that game on Sunday night against Minnesota to be able to dominate that game in the condition they're in. I thought that was pretty extraordinary. I still don't trust the coaching staff to make the right decisions if they get to a critical situation where it's a 4th and short and the right play is to punt or kick a field goal. I still don't trust that'll happen, so I'm a little bit guarded about my optimism for the Lions getting to the Super Bowl. But they showed they're an extraordinary team in that performance.
So college basketball. Last year, St. John's didn't make the tournament. From what you've seen of them so far and what Pitino has, does that end and they make it this year?
I think they'll make it, but there's no guarantee. The Big East did not have a great non-conference. So the number of bids that will be available to the league will probably be pretty limited. So you're going to have to finish in the top 3 or 4 of the league to feel good about having a chance. I think they certainly can. They showed a little bit of struggle early on trying to sort of adapt to Pitino's demands, to alignment situations. They brought in 2 point guards and weren't really sure whether to play them together or how it would work. I think they're starting to figure that out a little bit better and starting to perform better. But you got to watch if you're St. John's right now, you got to watch for Creighton. Creighton can get a lot better in a hurry. They struggled early on, but they're still dangerous. Xavier, Zach Fremantle back, they can get dangerous, as well as Villanova, which is starting to play better. All those teams can take a run at one of the 3 or 4 bids that likely will be available to the Big East.
What do you think of Pitt tonight, getting 14.5 at Duke? They're both 12-2.
Yeah, I think that the key for Duke here is they know they only get so many quad 1 opportunities. To get Pitt at home, I don't think they'll mess around with this at all. I think they'll go right after it. I think that whether they can cover, that's a big number, but I think they win.
Great stuff, Mike. Enjoy your week.
This was a team that you should have dominated. You've now lost 4 straight. You're heading into the playoffs, and you're searching for answers, not just in terms of your offensive line, but your quarterback now.
I just don't see this team peaking at the right time. It was almost like we were anointing Mike Tomlin as the best coach in the NFL 12 or 13 weeks in. Then once they got to the real competition and the attrition started to settle in, it's just not a good football team.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this. I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text. Put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, "Hey, I never got the text." And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. When he texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFC selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
A quick glance over at the Spew News Desk as Carver High breaking yet another chop job in the NFL.
Yeah, it had seemed like, with how quiet it was yesterday, that maybe it was just going to be Gerard Mayo and Doug Peterson at the end of the year. We had 3 coaches, of course, fired in season. But no, we can add a 6th opening to the offseason list in terms of the head coaching market. That is because Las Vegas is going to move on from Antonio Pierce.
Gone. Big tough guy, bully.
Yeah. And it's kind of bizarre because, they had him go out and do the whole press conference yesterday. He was wearing the Raiders starter jacket, Raider Nation, doing all that, and then chopped today. So no more Antonio Pierce. Raiders' job is now open.
What an
business.
asshat this guy is. What an asshat. I mean, I said all year, did I not say on this show, he is no more an NFL coach than I am. He's a thief. He's a cheater. He is bad news. He was a lying piece of shack at Arizona State, cheating the entire time he was there. He's been banned from coaching in college. He'll never coach in the NFL again as a head coach. That's also guaranteed. And then what about the $30 million he stole with his businesses with his wife? Allegedly my ass. How does that sound? They did it. They're wanted. They're finished. Their bankruptcy's a lie. Everything about that guy's a lie. And he came across as such a bully in the NFL with the media, with fans, with his tough guy act. Bro, here's a newsflash for you, you moron. You don't play in the NFL anymore. No one's afraid of you. People don't respect you at all. You're a hack. Now go pay off your $30 million, for stealing all the cars. How's that sound? You thief, you scum. You heard me. Oh, and everything I said about your wife, I meant it. I never liked her anyway.
Antonio Pierce.
I don't like you either. Come get me, tough guy.
Finished. He is
nice
chopped.
Job you did in Las Vegas. You couldn't even last. Oh my God. He's done in one season. Imagine that. It's so obvious to me watching that guy standing on the sideline that he shouldn't have that job. Oh, my God, what an embarrassment to the NFL. Antonio Pierce. How long before he's in prison?
We shall see. He's going to have a lot of free time on his hands now as he has been chopped out in Vegas. So another job on the list
What'll
for
be the
you in
next
Vegas,
thing
which
he's
is
committing a crime involved with? What'll it be? He's already done it in college, pros, off the field. What's next? I mean, what's left when you got that many crimes on your resume? Leavenworth.
I'm going to guess he's going to disappear for a while.
He should go take over Michael
won't
Vick's
see him.
dogfighting business. He'd fit perfectly in there.
We'll see where the Raiders go. Of course, Brady's going to have heavy influence now over what the Vegas Raiders do. That's why Davis brought him there.
JT's still going to be bragging about the Raiders without their head coach. The great Raiders organization. What a joke.
Raiders.
What a joke. If it wasn't for Chris Berman, no one would mention them ever.
A lot of time on their hands now. Raider job open up. There you go. Spew news for you. No, sixth opening in the NFL. Here it is. The entire playoff tree for you. You were talking about some of the matchups before. That's where it is. The road to New Orleans for the Super Bowl. The Chiefs and the Lions will have the byes this week. The Chiefs really get 2 weeks of byes because they didn't show up on Sunday. So they get 2 weeks off, Kansas City. And then there are matchups which we're going to dive into a little bit here now, Scotty. So we're set. This is the best time of the year, playoff time. All the boring nonsense games that we watched the last 3 weeks are gone. Serious January football is here. Let's go.
I mean, let's have at it. I mean, I thought it was interesting to see who didn't make it. Like the Bengals, they come all the way back, go to 9-8, they don't make it. The Dolphins, they were going for 3 straight playoff years. They haven't won a playoff game since before Christ, but they didn't make it. And then right after their game, you see Tyreek Hill, he goes, he wants out.
Well,
get me out of here.
We played.
Get me out of here.
Me and Joe played it yesterday when you were off. So we played Tyreek after the game, given the whole, man, I'm out, man. I'm going to see you later. I'm getting out of here. Like, what's his problem? What? Yeah. I mean, I know it was a long year for him there, but that's like, why would you want to leave Miami? Honestly, we always say that's such a great place to be. But I guess he's had enough. But he does have a contract. Let's remember that. Can't just walk out the door.
Maybe he'll move in with Jimmy Butler at his new home when he leaves. Was there anything funnier than seeing that team suspend him for 7 games for opening his big fat mouth?
All these guys wanting to leave Miami. What is the matter with them? I mean, seriously. Butler, Tyreek.
I'll go to
Miami. Why not?
Have a SportsGrid studio in Miami.
It's a hell of a lot better than being here in the winter. That's for sure. We're going to head down to Miami. Let's start with Saturday night. Since, come on, it's the Steelers. In fact, I have to wait. I got a couple clips of Tomlin for you. That we will play when we come back. We'll hear from Harbaugh as well as round 3 between the Ravens and the Steelers. They split this year, and you're going to hear all the numbers again this week, Scotty. I'm going to give them to you. Tomlin's record against the Ravens. Tomlin's record against the spread against Lamar. All the blah, blah, blah. You're going to get it all from me because I think the Steelers are going to cover on Saturday night. So you're going to hear all of it from me all week long.
Well, look. It is a playoff game, and they are playing for their lives. It's one and done, or you either get it done or you're finished, season over, glad bag time. So, I could see it being a game. Seeing them winning is so far in my rearview mirror, and I don't care what I said. I don't care about the Philly. I don't care about, the Baltimore. I don't Kansas City, Cincinnati. What's the difference? They lost all 4 of the games. They fumbled away 2 of the games. They suck. Everyone knows what I was there. Everyone that was there knows they suck.
this was a team that you should have dominated. You've now lost 4 straight. You're heading into the playoffs and you're searching for answers, not just in terms of your offensive line, but your quarterback now.
I just don't see this team peaking at the right time. It was almost like we were anointing Mike Tomlin as the best coach in the NFL 12 or 13 weeks in. Then once they got to the real competition and the attrition started to settle in, it's just not a good football team.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this. I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text. Put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, "Hey, I never got the text." And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe. Like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, Carver High. I can't wait to see what Mike Tomlin has to say. I mean, I was sitting in my season tickets, and the language, the abusive, racist language and comments that were coming from screaming drunks. There was a guy behind me that was so bad that the guy next to me did the old in-stadium cop call where you can call and you can complain
you text
about
the number.
Yeah,
you texted like the 3-digit code, and then somebody comes to the seats. Yeah, they had to do that.
Huh? But what they do is they literally you can pull it up, and then you put in the seat number and row of the guy that's doing it, and then they come in anonymously and just pluck them. And this guy was so drunk and was yelling racist stuff at Mike Tomlin, like you can only imagine. You just think of exactly what you think that a person that was awful would say, and he was saying it. And it was loud. I mean, it was loud. And what was crazy was, to be honest with you, there's blacks everywhere, all around in the entire section. Everyone's, there's a complete 50-50 split of white and black, right? And there's some guy screaming N-bombs at Tomlin. And I cannot believe someone didn't come up there and just beat the living shack out of this guy. He wouldn't stop. I mean, this guy wouldn't stop. At one point, I was going to turn around, and I was just going to cold cock him 100 miles an hour right in the mouth. I was so sick and tired of listening. He was directly behind me, and he had never sat there before. I had never seen him before in my life. And I go to every game, and I wanted to stand up and finish him myself. 100 mile an hour right to the mouth because he was so drunk. It would have been the easiest knockout of my career. I would have just nailed him 100 miles an hour right in the mouth, and that would have been it. I would have knocked out his teeth. But he was so awful. And I thought to myself, at one point, I was sitting there thinking about doing it, and I'm like, I'm going to end up in jail tonight.
I mean, or everyone would have bought you a beer, like a real frosty beer out there, and everybody would just turn the other way when the cops came. We didn't see you hit him. No, we don't know hit him. If he was being that bad, you probably could have got away with it if you so choose to. But I guess that guy didn't have any.
They wanted
no
fired.
stops.
They want him fired.
No stops at Primanti Brothers on the way home for that guy with the other Yinzers. No stops
They
at
have that in
Primanti
the
Brothers on
airport
the
now,
way
by
home.
the way. The Primanti
Do
lives in the
they?
airport. Yeah.
Oh, wow. How about that? Let's start, Tomlin, with talking about the last 4 weeks. Of course, they haven't been good. They've lost all 4 games heading into the playoffs. Here's Mike.
You know, it's important that we take the lessons learned from the last month.
Oh, my God.
Unfortunately, you probably learn more when there's failure, and obviously we've experienced some of that. Some of it not jaw-dropping things or earth-shattering things, more confirmation of things that we believe in or things that we engineer victory by. We suffered the consequences of not winning the turnover to battle
Stop letting Art Smith
in
call
recent
plays,
weeks,
bro.
and that's been very evident. We've also suffered the consequences of not performing to our standards in the red zone, offensively and defensively. And oftentimes your ability to win possession downs within those situations define you, that 4-point swing. During that four-game stretch, we weren't strong enough defensively in that area, and we certainly weren't strong enough offensively in that area.
I can't. Listen, Mike, I can't take it anymore. This guy just blows smoke about he's smarter than everybody in the room, and he's going to use big words and all of his rhetoric. And the reality is that let's face it, he hired Art Smith. He hired Matt Canada. Both of those guys are literally, along with Ken Dorsey, the 3 worst offensive coordinators in the history of the National Football League. Ken Dorsey should no more be allowed to coach football than I should be running the NFL. Let's stop. This guy, Art Smith, is a hack. The play calling is so boring. I said at one point Saturday night, I have had more fun at church than sitting in this stadium watching this absolute shack pie of an offense run their gamut of nothingness. They run up the middle, off tackle on every single play. They do nothing else. When they throw the ball, you want to keel over. How about this? It's 3rd and 9. They always throw a 3-yard pass. I mean, they are so anemic. I'm done with it. Don't even start with me. I'm done with it. I can't even believe you're taking the 10. Honestly, I'm done with it. I'm going to have a stroke. I may get up right now and leave. Right now on this show. I can't even take it anymore.
Going to be a blue-collar game.
Done with it.
Like 16-13, 2013 Ravens somewhere. The defense for the Steelers will show up on Saturday night in Baltimore.
We'll be right back. It's time for a SportsGrid 2-minute drill.
Time now to play a little buy or sell. The Kansas City Chiefs, George, will win their 3rd straight Super Bowl. Are you buying or selling?
They do seem to be hitting their stride. All right, they get now, 3.5 weeks off here, get everybody healthy. Mahomes, the ankle. Kelsey gets the rest. Chris Jones, who missed that game on Christmas, now he gets the rest of it. He's an extremely important part of that defense. So they're looking good. They're covering spreads now, something they weren't doing. Now they're actually winning legitimate games. That being said, that offensive line is still bad. All right, and I think there'll be teams that take advantage of that. No, I'm selling. I'm selling here.
I don't even care if I believe this or not. I'm selling. I do not want to see this. I do not want to see the Chiefs win again. This has not been a fun year watching them. They've gotten lucky. They've gotten some calls. No, please no. Jamar Chase will win the receiving triple crown this season. Yards, receptions, and touchdowns. George, you going to buy or sell this?
I'm going to sell this. I'm going to say, he's great. He's going to have a lot of great numbers here, but I'm going to say no, he won't get the receiver crown. Maybe 2 out of 3. He'll just miss. He'll do a little Aaron Judge. He won't get the average.
All right, I'll play the buy. I'll play the buy card just to play something different in the end, and he was my best player in fantasy this year, so I'll say buy there. I'm going to skip ahead, Sam, to the last one, the running back here. Bucky Irving, who's been fantastic for Tampa Bay, will be a top 8 running back in drafts next season. Is this
buy or sell?
Assuming everybody comes back, Godwin, Evans, Mayfield, I see no reason why they wouldn't. I'm going to buy this, Craig. I'm going to buy. I think Buck Aaron is going to be that guy. It's a heavy passing offense, lots of touchdowns. Buy.
Fantasy Sports Today, your weekend source for year-round fantasy insights, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m.